What's going on? It's Alan Brown, aka Bully the Kid. It's a little bit different place than I normally would be doing. I normally doing it handheld and stuff, but I figured I would talk about this because I got asked this question on my Instagram. Follow me, bully_the_kid. If you care to laugh, because I do reaction videos and act stupid over there. But the person asked me, hey, I see that you are in the car audio. What are your thoughts on the big three? And he started a group chat of like 5 people, and we were talking about car audio stuff, what's necessary, what's not. So I figured I would take this information and just kind of throw it in the stratosphere, and y'all can let me know if I'm right in my thinking or not. So what is the big three? The big three is it's a system of wiring that actually makes your vehicle more stable in of itself. So factory wiring usually comes in smaller gauges. So let's say it would be an 8 gauge going from the battery terminal to the chassis or to your car shell. That 8 gauge would do the job, but if you're actually trying to add amperage to your car audio system, you're going to need something a little bit more strong to make sure that everything is really tied in and stuff like that. So what the big three is where you take heavier gauge, usually 0 gauge, and you go from the battery terminal, negative, to the chassis ground. There's probably one right by the battery terminal that's already there. Just trace that line back, 0 gauge that. That's one. The second one is you take a 0 gauge and go to the engine ground, or one of the, you got to go to the engine block. So something that's not heavily trafficked and stuff like that, tap it in on a screw. Make sure it's something that you don't necessarily have to move, like a bracket. So don't put it on like a alternator or a not an alternator, that's gonna be next, but you will put it on a bolt that readily does not move and stuff like that. So you go negative to your chassis ground, which is probably next to the battery itself. Then you go negative to the engine ground, that ties in both of those on the negative side. And then you would take that another 0 gauge and go to the alternator's hot side. There is a existing wire that is there that serves the purpose of charging the system, but again, helping everything be more solid to handle amperage draws and passes for when the bass hits, or when hi-hats hit, or when, you know, your 6x9s that you've thrown 15 of them in the back of your car, all of those slap at the same time. There's an amperage draw that if you don't have the protection, you can burn down your car because you're essentially overheating the circuit. So there's that. First order of business, whenever you're looking to upgrade your system, I would go ahead and do the big three because you're probably going to do it later on anyway. It's easy to do. Just go ahead and knock it out. I think a roll of 0 gauge is somewhere around 30, and you can get 0 gauge terminals and stuff like that with the sleeves, usually for probably about $10. So $60 to strengthen your system so you can start building. The next step, it would be to get a stronger battery, something that's not lead acid, something that's that disperses energy really efficiently. So an AGM battery, or lately the world's been going to lithium batteries, but we're gonna get there in a second. When you get an AGM battery, number one, you're looking for a battery that fits your vehicle in the size, just like physically fits your vehicle underneath the hood. And again, you have that reassurance because of the 0 gauge that it's not going to overheat the system. Hence me saying do it first. I would look for, depending on what your system that you're trying to run, I would look for something that's no lower than 750 cold cranking amps, right? And you want it to, you want an AGM battery, nothing lower than 750 cold cranking amps. Really. If you can't get in the thousands or so, go ahead and do that. Just depending on how much your system is drawing, You know, there's different brands that actually say, hey, if you have this type of system, run this battery. So you would look at what your amplifier itself actually has the capacity to do. So for starting out, let's say you got 1,000 RMS amp, right? You got a Down for Sound Mini Max 1000, right? I also have one of those. So for that system, you would need a battery that can disperse energy at a minimum, something that's in a minimum ballpark of around 1,000 to about 1,500 watts. So that's the type of battery you're looking for. They got excess power. I think Down for Sound actually sells batteries that do this, AGM. And there's a lot of battery brands that are out there. Kinetic. I think I said excess power already. But yeah, so you're looking for something that's going to explicitly say the range that it's supposed to be operating in. And you always want to have just a little bit more capacity for, you know, long drawn out situations. That'll solve the current draw or power draw under the hood. Now, you're going to fuse your amplifier anyway, right? So what I would tell you to do when we get into the second piece of this, where it's like you're building up one, building up the next one, building it up. So we have the big three. Then we have your battery upgrade. Next thing you would look at is your alternator, upgrading your alternator to give you a little bit more amperage draw so that it charges the battery faster. Some people would say, hey, I already have okay alternator. I'm just gonna add another battery. You can do that, and it may be a little bit cheaper. It may put a band-aid on what I've seen happen, which is you start jamming and then all of a sudden you get over the threshold and your lights start dimming. That means your capacity is lower and you're gonna need to upgrade the charging source so that it doesn't like suck all the power out every time your bass hits and stuff like that. So I would say big three first. Shore up your system, start from a solid foundation. Then I will upgrade the battery to something that could take whatever your system requirements are. Now granted, if you have like a 500 RMS system and you're running a 10, you may not need to upgrade your battery. You might be okay, you know what I'm saying? But if you're going into you thumping and you're trying to push, then you're gonna need to upgrade the battery. And then later, if you're really trying to get down consistently, you're gonna need to upgrade the alternator. Now, there's varying ranges of what alternators are rated for, but general rule of thumb, just take whatever you have, the rating that's currently there, and at least double it. Don't go from 130 to 250 amp rating, because I think most cars are around 100 to 125 amp rating on the alternators. It don't make no sense for you to pay an extra $300 to only get a headroom of 100 amps. So just go from what you have, take that, multiply it. Now you in the 300, 350 range. Just go ahead and knock it out one time. It's better to have too much than to not have enough and you have to replace it again. That's extra money, right? Save your money, be smart about it. There's a whole bunch of brands that are out there, JS alternators. You got MechMan. Just two big ones that I can think of off my head. I actually have a JS alternators on mine, and I think I went $375 for mine. I have an Expedition. After we get there, your big three, then you have your battery, then you've upgraded your alternator. You should be good to push 1,500 watts RMS just off of those, just off the strength. You should be good and you should be cool. But if you're trying to get into the, hey, I'm going to strap multiple amplifiers together and I'm going to go 5,000 RMS on a 810 system or I've seen some crazy stuff. So then you get into going to your secondary battery. So just like you would fuse the battery underneath the hood, fuse it, and then go to your amplifier, you're now going to have to fuse that battery, because that's one part. Then you add in a secondary battery, so it's battery, fuse, battery, and I would be using the same 0 gauge cable, just so you're not bottlenecking it going 4 gauge out to a 8 gauge to a 0 gauge. That's crazy. So just go 0 gauge the whole way. That's a little bit more expensive. I would go with a good copper. Don't go cheap on the amp kit, because it's gonna fail, right? So do it right. Have peace of mind. It's gonna cost a little bit more, but it's worth it in the long run, especially if you're gonna have that vehicle forever, or for the foreseeable future. So battery under the hood, 0 gauge fuse, 0 gauge to the secondary battery. You can either go AGM again or lithium. Do not go lead based. If you go lithium, it's going to be lighter. It's going to be a smaller footprint. It's going to hold the same capacity, just in a smaller section, so you can tuck it behind stuff and not be too worried about it. I see this in a lot of crank it up competitions. They'll have a whole battery bank of lithium batteries and stuff. That's not necessary for normal people, but if you're not normal, then govern yourself accordingly. You probably wouldn't be listening to me now. So let's just say battery, 8 gauge, fuse for whatever your amp rating is. Got the 0 gauge to the secondary battery. From there, you go from that secondary battery fuse to the amplifier. You need double protection because it's 2 runs that get short out, and you want to protect your battery and also your equipment, right? So there's that. Now you should be able to push around the 1500, 2000 watt range, and I'm talking RMS. I'm not talking burst volume. I'm talking, this is constant power. Again, you have the same idea. If you're going to get a legit secondary battery, don't go any lower than 750. Keep that range for what your amplifier does, with just a little bit more headroom. And then that's pretty much it for that. The amplifier, that's completely up to you. Do your research. There are a few brands that say they push power that isn't. It's like power pushed in a vacuum sealed room, burst, perfect conditions, stuff like that. But do your homework. Make sure you know what you're buying. Take care of your equipment. Take care of yourself. Have fun. As far as subwoofers and boxes and stuff like that, I'm dealing specifically with Down for Sound, but that's who I've been using for pretty much all my speakers and components. This isn't paid. That's just what I use. That's what I look up stuff for. And then from there, I go and look up the information on YouTube online and verify what they're saying is actually the truth. Reason why I say Down for Sound is so dope is because they actually have a cat that does car audio, Big D, Wiz. And he has the dyno tuner, and he sends it through its paces at 4 ohm, 1 ohm, half ohm sometimes. And, you know, it's a good time. But yeah, I've talked enough. Hopefully y'all learned something. If you have any questions, anything like that, I'm not a guru, but I can find the answer for you. So put it in the comments, and I will catch you in the next one. Till then, y'all be easy.